Well, the government is under attack after news broke that Statistics Canada has the legal right to take the banking information from 500,000 Canadians without their knowledge. The opposition calls this a big brother moment, but the government says no, it's all safe and it will all help deliver better policy. This story might be an opportunity to showcase the NDP leader Jagmeet Singh holding the Prime Minister's feet to the fire. But as we all know, he does not have a seat in Parliament yet. He does want to run in a recently vacated seat in the Vancouver area of Burnaby, but the Prime Minister has decided not to call a by-election there, even though he called one in another riding this past week. Mr. Singh calls this petty politics, but is it his own fault for not running in another riding sooner? To talk about all this, we are joined now by the NDP leader himself, Jagmeet Singh. Great to have you back in the program, sir.
Great to be back, Evan.
Let's start with the Stats Can story if we can. Should the government change the law that allows Statistics Canada to take the financial information of Canadians and use it for policy without Canadians knowing about it?
Well, there's two elements to this. One is we should always let people know what we're going to do. I think that's important in terms of transparency. Secondly, the Privacy Commissioner has said they're going to investigate into are there the proper safeguards in place to protect Canadians' privacy? That's a serious concern. Canadians are worried about their privacy, and they want to be assured that all the safeguards are in place. If those two steps are taken, then I think we can move ahead with things. But without having transparency, without knowing what's going to happen, and without knowing if the Privacy Commissioner has weighed in on the safeguards, Canadians are concerned, and rightly so.
But Mr. Singh, the law is clear. StatsCan does have the right to tell the banks, give us all the information. Then, as the government says, they will, this is the word, anonymize it and make sure it's scrubbed of personal information. My question is, the Privacy Commissioner may have protections, but should the government have the legal right through StatsCan to get into the private financial information of Canadians?
Well, I think the concern isn't specifically getting into that information. CRA would have a lot of our information. But the concern really is there privacy that's protected? And that's why the Privacy Commissioner's investigation into this to ensure that all the safeguards are in place are very important. Secondly, like I said, it's important that Canadians know about what's going to happen. I mean, if you're provided an update, there's a reason for this, there's a policy, a benefit, and we're letting folks know. There's a difference. When it's something that you find out in the news, people are a little shocked and a little concerned. Why weren't we given a heads up about this? I think those are real concerns that Canadians have. Let
me just switch to the former Governor General, Adrienne Clarkson. The National Post reported she's still billing Canadians more than $100,000 a year for what's called office expenses. Her term ended 13 years ago in 2005. She already has an annual annuity of $140,000 a year on top of these office expenses. We don't know where the money goes. What's your view? Do we need to change the rules around former Governor Generals?
Well, I think Canadians are right to be concerned again about this, thinking, you know, what's the utility? Is there a purpose? Where is it going? Transparency questions are all very fair questions. I think this is another example of where we need to review and ensure that there's transparency and that there's fairness with respect to why the money is being spent and if it's something that's being accounted for in a way that makes sense to Canadians.
Okay, I mean, the rule is, just to be clear, they're allowed, it goes back to 1979, right? If they have office expenses. They don't report if it's under $100,000. What would you, if you were the Prime Minister, you could be the Prime Minister in a year, what would you do with this law?
Well, I'd take a chance to review it to see what's the benefit to Canadians. Is there a role that's being played that provides a value for Canadians, and assess that, look at the impact in terms of value and look at the cost, and then do an analysis and see whether or not this makes sense or not.
Just out of interest, are you a monarchist or a Republican? Like when you get these stories on this, is it time to just get rid of the Governor General altogether? What's your view on that?
I'm a Republican. Absolutely. Well, it sounds a bit awkward saying that given the other connotation in the States. I believe that we should be a state. I think that makes sense. And I'm open to hearing folks' opinions on that, but that's my take.
Oh, you would like, so that's it. You'd like to end the monarchy. You'd think Canada should be a republic, no more monarchy, no more connection to the crown.
Yeah, I don't see the relevance of it. I don't think that most Canadians do, but I'm open to hearing folks' concern on it, but that's my position. I don't think that's I think we are a nation and we are proud of our nation and proud of the work we do. We've got a democracy and we're proud of our democracy, and I think that's That's what most Canadians think is important, and I think we should focus on that.
Let's talk about the by-election. The Prime Minister refuses to call a by-election in the riding you want to run in Burnaby. Now, legally, he has 6 months since the former MP left. Now, that he was an NDP MP named Kennedy Stewart, now the mayor-elect in Vancouver. He resigned in September. You've called this petty. Why should the Prime Minister, why does he owe you an early by-election? Why can't he just follow the law?
Well, he owes the 300,000 Canadians in those 3 ridings that haven't had a by-election called. The common practice is when one by-election is called, all the outstanding by-elections are called. In fact, when one seat is vacated, when you call a by-election, you call all the vacant seats at once. That's been the common practice. Breaking from that common practice, if there's no reason for it, again, makes no sense.
Why shouldn't the Prime Minister just use the rules, keep you out of Parliament for as long as he can? It's his right to do that. You didn't really want to be in Parliament. You spent the first year not wanting to be there, bypassing by-elections. Why the complaint now?
Well, I would have complained whether I was running or not. The fact is, once you've called one by-election, call all the vacant seats. There's a Outremont by-election. We're excited to make sure people have their say and their voice in Outremont. There's York and Simcoe, there's Burnaby South. There's these 3 communities across Canada that deserve to have a voice, and there is no justification for not calling. Once they've called one, why not call the others?
Kennedy Stewart, who was an NDP MP, who he was running to be the mayor of Vancouver, and he still held the seat. Why didn't you say, if you want to run to be the mayor of Vancouver, get out of that seat and give people real representation? Show them that they care. Why did you let him both run for the mayor and hang on to that seat?
Well, first of all, it's a personal choice. Secondly, he continues to do his job as an MP. But more importantly, whatever he did cannot be compared to the Prime Minister of Canada, who has a responsibility to ensure if their seat is vacated, whatever the reason behind the vacating of the seat, the Prime Minister should call a by-election. There's no way we can equate the decision of a MP and the responsibility of the Prime Minister of this country that if there's vacated seats that people don't have representation right now, they deserve to have a by-election so they can have that representation. There's no parallel that can in any way say the Prime Minister of this country can be justified by pointing to the individual reason of an MP.
All right, got to leave it there. Jagmeet Singh, Leader of the NDP, great to have you back in the program, sir.
Great to be back, Evan.